Welcome to Search the Scripture. We're going to do a video analysis of a debate that I saw recently on a video. It's a debate on the topic of free will. Yes, I said free will. I will choose free will. Okay, all right, that was a diversion. All right, okay. We've got the Arminians on one side and we've got Calvinists on the other side, but not your typical Calvinists. They are not compatibilists. These are not the kind of Calvinists that will say they believe in a concept of freedom or free will, and then after 20 questions and pulling teeth, you find out they lied to you and they actually meant hard determinism. No, I'm talking about Calvitards or Calvinazis or consistent Calvinists. Excuse me. Yes, consistent Calvinists. These are like your Gordon H. Clark types who will say that if a man shoots his wife, that it was the will of God. Or that if you weren't predestined to be saved, it's because God hates you. These are the kind of Calvinists I'm talking about. And I wonder if our Arminian friends, whom I favor actually, I don't agree with everything they have to say, but I favor their side. I am team Flowers and Pritchett. Yes, I wonder if they were actually prepared to deal with these pointy-eared hobgoblins, because they are a hard brand of Calvinists to deal with. Dr. Leighton Flowers, I know from Facebook, is a great guy. He's very calm, peaceful, and wonderful guy. He's got a lot of videos and things out for the public. Dr. Flowers can analyze, almost like a computer, the errors in Calvinism, and he can refute them. He has great refutations for them. I especially like his refutations of Dr. James White. Dr. Pritchett, I'm not familiar with all that much, but he did a great job also in this presentation. Now, our consistent Calvinists, we've got Dr. Sonny Hernandez in one corner with Dr. Theodore Zachariades. And they remind me of a couple Mormons that come to the door, where Zachariades is the senior partner who does all the talking, and when he puts his foot in his mouth, the junior partner, Hernandez, tries to get him out of it, but digs them both deeper into the pit. So anyways, Dr. Zachariades, oh man, he's got positive aspects and negative aspects, because we should actually say some positive things about him. But let's start off with some of the bad stuff. He comes out swinging. He's going to go for the jugular. He comes across very harsh, brash, unloving, or appears to be unloving anyways. He does say some very scary things, like he says, "You guys are not my brothers." And he really believes that these guys are heretics. He's got a loveless light, as Winky Pratney would call it. It's a zeal without knowledge, a fanaticism. So he believes he's defending God. So he is sincere. But he comes across as an unpleasant person. But his defenders will say, well, yeah, you got to really take a stand against those heretics. So he expresses his feelings, and he's not afraid to show his feelings and his thoughts and feelings towards Arminians. He won't view them as brothers at all. He really thinks they're not saved. And Team Flowers and Pritchett, they come across in a very, well, meek in a good way and meek in a not so good way during the thing here. But let's go take a look right now at the clips here. So what I've done is I've pared down the debate down to what I feel are the key things that were in the debate here. And so we've got past all the heavy theatrics that Zachariades was doing, And so now he's going to his opening statement here, and here's part of it.
Now, my opponents believe that Adam had free will. Let me ask you a question. Did God know that Adam would fall? If he did, then what knowledge was there? There was knowledge of him falling? Then was Adam truly free to reject what God knew would happen? My opponent is going to raise his hands and say, mystery, mystery, mystery. We can't explain that. We don't know how. We just know that God knows everything, but we're still free. Well, in his definition that he cites 3 times in his book, you cannot have free will and have God know everything at the same time.
Hold on there. I know for certain that this is, even I've never read the book, but I know one thing. Dr. Leighton Flowers is a classical Arminian. He believes that it is perfectly consistent to have free will with exhaustive foreknowledge. So I think this guy is either misheard it, misread it, or he hadn't read it, or he's lying. But he conflates 2 different ideas of free will.
Because by definition, a future free action is unknowable.
For the most part.
It's unknowable. Doesn't exist until I make my decision.
Not always.
Until I exercise my free will, there is nothing to know. That's why my friends should affirm, or should embrace,
pay attention,
as they're clearly almost there, open theism. They should embrace a consistent position that acknowledges just exactly what they truly, truly believe.
And he says what they really, really, truly believe is that God is not sovereign and that you save yourself. And he just goes on this incredible bad tirade here. And so it's worth not listening to at this point. What he does, and this, it's so sad, he understands that in the Arminian position that what they're teaching is inconsistent open theism. I agree with him on that. What I disagree with is his own Calvinistic position. I think he did a great job at pointing out the error in Arminianism, and he sticks to that point throughout the entire debate. He keeps on hitting on it. And Dr. Flowers, when he's up against the ropes, eventually he reacts, and he's out of character, which I've never seen before. But he gets rather animated in consequence. But both teams, what they end up doing is that they are able to expertly see the flaws in the other positions and then destroy them and collapse them. What they're not good at doing is seeing their own errors. And so they end up throwing this pejorative back and forth. You're an open theist. No, and the other one says, no, you're the open theist. And you'll see this as they go on. They think that open theism is probably the worst thing that a person could ever believe. It's so unacademic and not even worthy of attention. They're snobs, really, when it comes down to it. They thumb their nose up at the idea that the future is not there yet. They think it's all definite, that it's already fated. Oh, don't use the word fate. We don't believe in fate. Yeah, you do. According to the definition, both sides are fatalists when it comes down to it. Except the Arminian is an inconsistent open theist. He believes in the power of contrary choice, but he also believes it's perfectly consistent with an absolutely certain future. Okay, one little correction on my part here. Dr. Zachariades is not actually accusing them of being open theists. He's saying they should embrace it and adopt it if they want to hold a consistent position. But in order to be consistent, they have to reject exhaustive foreknowledge. That's the kind of key thing. Let's watch what happens here next.
It's funny that you bring that up about theodicy, because free will doesn't work, and determinists out there of all stripes, Christian and non, have shown that that's a fallacy. Now, from our perspective, God does ordain everything. On your view, given free will, God kind of took a risk, didn't he? Look how many people are going to hell, and he doesn't want them to, and yet he decided to create us all, to give us free will, and they're all going to hell, and God can't do anything about it. That's your view. Will you own it? Will you own it that God was really unwise in making this world the way he did?
God wants a free world with free moral creatures. That's what we believe. And therefore, God's not failing by allowing for free choice, any more so than you as a parent. If you allow your child...
Did God know that people would reject him?
Well, I'm not going to make them jump into the modal fallacy of conflating necessity with that which is known. In other words, that which is known can be certainly known, but not necessary.
I'm not saying it's necessary. I'm saying certain.
Well,
it was certain.
Again, we
Did God know?
We are not denying that God certainly knows.
Okay.
We are denying that certain knowledge equals determinism.
I'm not saying it equals determinism. What I'm saying is that given your free will,
You're
how
asking
can you
these
know?
questions. Let's be respectful.
How does
of
your
the
view
audience
allow
that's
God to
asking
know?
Questions. The audience is asking questions now, so let's be respectful of that.
Okay. Oh, that's amazing. You notice that Zachariades, he delineates the thrust of his message. He keeps on hitting that one point, only makes it sharper and sharper and sharper as he goes. So he keeps on coming back to the same question. Only he's spelling it out, and he's showing it in all its different aspects. He's making it really clear. And you can tell it's putting them on the defensive now. Brother Leighton, he comes up with the standard Arminian reply that foreknowledge does not equal determinism. Doesn't mean that God's determining it. And of course, Zachariades, he's already heard this argument probably dozens of times. He's studied the Arminian position, he's studied the open theist position, and he knows that from the open theist position, that's the consistent view of free will. It's the only way that you can be a consistent believer in free will. And so he says, no, I'm not saying determinism, I'm saying certain. And so when he took away the weapons, or at least the defensive armor of Brother Leighton and Pritchett, you know what Pritchett does? At this point he goes, we've got to pay attention. This is, we're dealing with questions from the audience. We're dealing from the questions of the audience. Because he wants to shut that question down. You notice that? But that's okay, because Zachariades, he's going to come back again and again and again. Ooh, I just don't want to be those guys in that situation. Actually, I don't want to be either guys in that situation. An observation here. Dr. Zachariades, he is aware that these men embrace the Platonic doctrine. He doesn't call it Platonic, I did. The doctrine of exhaustive foreknowledge. What that means to the Arminian is that God knows what he is going to do in the future, including sending his son to die for sinners. He sees all his own actions. He sees all the actions of men. He sees your actions. He sees my actions. And he sees who's going to receive Christ and who isn't. So he sees who is going to go to hell, and he sees those who are going to go to heaven. Now, if God foresees all this, can he do anything to save those that he foresees are going to hell? No, he can't. If he foresees them going to hell, there's nothing he can do about it. He's utterly impotent to do anything about it. And he's going to explain this. And when he says the idea that God is powerless, notice that finally he's put the pressure on that one point on Brother Flowers, and then at this point he's gotten under his skin, and then he reacts. He acts out of character, and he must be appealing to mystery, according to the nutball Zachariades, because he says, well, God did do something about it. He sent Jesus to die on the cross. Well, it didn't change anything God foreknew. You see what I mean? Those he foresees are going to hell from before the creation are still going there. And that's the thing that Arminians don't seem to get with their view there. Okay. But let's watch this next thing here.
If you think that God did not ordain sin, then whence cometh sin? Do you not understand that if God does not ordain it, and it happens, it means that God is powerless to prevent it?
Appeals to ordination.
Our opponent also just said a little earlier
Here's the reaction.
that God can't do anything about it. He did something about it. He sent Jesus. To say he can't do anything about it totally undermines the gospel that God has sent Christ for us to be able to believe, and he makes a way of salvation. He makes an appeal for all men to be reconciled through faith in him.
True.
I want to read this. Man in his state of innocency had freedom and power to will and to do that which was good and well-pleasing to God, but yet was unstable so that he might fall from it. That's the London Baptist Confession of Faith, which Sonny sent to me saying he affirmed this. And yet here in the debate, they have disaffirmed that God gave freedom to the first man and the first woman. Was God sovereign over Adam and Eve?
He doesn't answer the question.
Was he?
He goes on the attack instead.
Because he had freedom. Even the London Baptist Confession of Faith said that he could have sinned or not sinned, that he had freedom. Did God lose his sovereignty back then? What about us today? Do I have the freedom to become a Calvinist today? Do you have a freedom to become a Calvinist today? If you have such freedom, has God's sovereignty failed? Has God just not sovereign anymore? Of course God's sovereign, because sovereign means God's ability to rule and do whatever he pleases. We just don't assume that God is pleased to meticulously determine the world like robots.
Okay, do you believe that it's God's will to save everyone?
And at that point when Zachariades comes back again with the question, the moderator shut him down at that point because they wanted to deal with another question. But he keeps on bringing it back to this, as we'll see as we go on. But with Dr. Flowers, his reaction, he also brings up this thing from the 1611 Baptist Confession, because he wants to show that these guys are liars. Yeah, and he did a good job of that. But that's probably not the place to do it, in that place in the conversation. And the reason is because he brings it up to take the pressure off of him and Pritchett, because that question is a very touchy question now, because it's made them react here. And so let's call her quits for at least this part of the video. I'm going to do some more parts. I'd probably do maybe, hopefully wrap it up in the next one. Might have to do a third one. Thanks for stopping in, and we'll continue this analysis later. God bless you.